Good morning, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing a video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know, and I want to talk about Venezuela and what's happening in Central America. From my perspective, I don't receive a lot of memos from people who have intelligence or, the investigators, the policymakers, and the authorities, but I do have a perspective based on experience in this country. And I also think I kind of have a view of something that would make a lot of sense. And I just want to share that view really quickly. So it comes down to elitism, which most people in America are familiar with. It is hailed as an ideal, as something to reach for. Economic elitism, economic prosperity, being rich, that is, perhaps rich and famous. There are a lot of things that have historically in this country been celebrated as worthy goals and, the symbols of success, if you will. And I say celebrated because it's not necessarily a given that these are the metrics, that these are the measurements of success, but in this country, you can't avoid hearing about it. So this video is not really about what success is or how to measure it or what's objectively a qualifier, but there is a deep vein of elitism in America, and this is the problem. This is actually what has precipitated the conflict in Venezuela, in my view. So I want to talk about how that has happened. You have in this country, in the United States, conservatives, a lot of conservatives, and they're actually the majority of the country if you look at it geographically. The middle part of the whole country is red. It's conservative, they're Republican mostly. You have the liberals, the Democrats, so to speak, on the upper East Coast and in California and in other places, sporadically here and there. But here's the thing. The difference in ideology between conservatism and liberalism is one of what I just said. It's whether or not you celebrate being an elitist. If you're taking your measurement at the top, that is, looking at the richest, most successful people to define the quality of your civilization, your society, that would be a form of elitism and conservatism. That's one principle of those groups. But on the other hand, you have liberals that are more concerned with taking care of the disadvantaged, providing services for people, and historically that has required taxation and spending in a civic and political sense. So conservatives are opposed to that because they are wealthy themselves already. Usually they have independence. They don't care too much about providing for the needy because they look down on them. Honestly, let's be honest. They will tell you in the same breath that they care about the needy, but then their actions will reflect otherwise many, many times. But this isn't, again, a criticism of conservatism. I'm not trying to choose a side. What I'm saying is that the conservatives have held power in the United States for quite some time now. Trump is now enjoying his second term as U.S. president. And in office, he has been influential, not just in this country, but all around the world. And especially with his populist ideas of building a wall along the southern border of not California, but also the entire country, right? If you remember his first run for presidency, a big part of his traction was to appeal to conservatives by supposedly building a wall to keep out all of the unpleasant illegal immigrants that shouldn't be here to begin with. And that continues to be part of his rhetoric. But in making this his argument, now here's my point. I'm getting to the point. He has alienated Central America. And it's going on, 10 years now that the United States has been just trash talking the hell out of Central America and Mexicans and Venezuelans. And, there's down there, the borders are a lot thinner. And, you can't necessarily tell a Venezuelan from, Brazilian or a Mexican. And they all understand one thing in common, and that is the U.S. is not a friend. The U.S. is not our friend, and it has driven Venezuela, for example, and other places away from conservatism. away from the ideologies, because these people are not stupid. They have never been stupid as a people. They're close to the earth, but that does not make them stupid. And this is part of what I'm talking about, how Americans are a little presumptuous sometimes about what the qualifications of success actually look like. If you ask me, it's about health and happiness. And just, living modestly or simply close to the earth doesn't necessarily mean you're less successful, but that's a different conversation. So anyway, these people, knowing that they're not stupid and knowing that their way of life is valid and that they're valid people and human beings, and they deserve much better respect in terms of rhetoric and in treatment of human beings than they're receiving from the US, have been driven away from the US ideologically and politically. And this is coming to a head finally in Venezuela, which is in, incidentally, rocket range of Washington, D.C. It's not out of the question that an ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile, could be launched from Venezuela, just like back during the Cuban Missile Crisis. There was an actual incident with Cuba receiving some intercontinental ballistic missiles from Russia. And the U.S. having a panic about it. And this is very similar. It's very similar because being within striking distance, being alienated and opposed to the U.S., and based on what I've read, finally reaching a point where they were about to elect a communist dictator, a communist representative for the people, for all of the reasons I just said, among others. The U.S. intelligence community and the U.S. Decision makers have instead forcibly intervened. Okay, they decided that they weren't going to allow any more progress in that direction by Venezuela because it threatens the ideology of the United States as conservatives, as a conservative majority. They don't want any more resistance and problems, so they just did what they always do. They just barged on in. They extracted the president of Venezuela, as if there aren't going to be consequences, right? As if that's not going to just start a fire in Central America, politically speaking, and around the world. You don't just annex a country without people noticing. And I don't even think it's Trump. I mean, I have a lot of opinions in this video. I don't think it's Trump. I think that Trump is largely a puppet. He's the guy who will give you zero resistance for whatever you want him to do. He's the guy who isn't a complete and total catastrophe on camera. He's close to it, but he's good, just barely good enough to sit in that chair and follow orders by the people who are actually making decisions. And that's why Trump is in power right now, so to speak, power in quotes. So, here's the thing. There will be another war. There will be a lot more wars because at some point people forget. This is what causes war: the absence of diplomacy, the assumption of self-righteousness by a power or a country or a leader, to the point where they close channels of communication. They are so distracted by their own cronies and their own prosperity that they become rude, insulting, and damaging to other people around the world, to the point where it cannot be supported, at which point those people are forced to defend themselves, right? It's not rocket science. Now, whether or not Venezuela itself fights us or something in Central America fights us, the world will not stand by while a toxic, corrupt administration in the U.S. just flagrantly waltzes into a sovereign nation, takes it over by Trump's admission, and just does whatever they please. Robs the people of their oil, robs the people of their leader, robs the people of their choice to be communist if they chose. What's next? We're going to, just walk up into North Korea and China and Iran and Russia all at the same time? Geez, that's a big project, bro. What are you trying to do? Now, I think they're grasping at straws because it's a bad move. It looks like a Hail Mary to me. From a political analysis perspective, it looks like a Hail Mary. You don't just annex a country without being desperate in the first place, okay? There's a reason why this doesn't happen a lot. There's a big reason, because it doesn't go over. In this day and age, in this world, it doesn't go over. So get ready for some fireworks, people. Buckle up, Buttercup. It's coming. It's coming right now. And you already know. You already know that you should have been taking the measurements at the bottom, not the top. And there is a proper way to do it, but that's out of the scope of this video. Reach out if you like with questions or comments to whitehotrobot@gmail.com. Thank you.